to we'll call this our annual, yearly, maybe, special edition of Mike Chuck. This is episode 7. With us, we have NSAA Assistant Director Ron Higdon, who's in charge of wrestling, along with, we'll go with tennis and soccer. But this is a high school wrestling podcast. Am I missing anything else? Tennis, soccer?
Wrestling dad?
Tennis, soccer, wrestling, sports medicine, student leadership.
That's right.
A few other things.
Forgot about this.
Other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
Wrestling dad, softball dad.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, can we, so as we're recording this now, so we need to recap last week and everything that happened, but I think the only thing that really matters is me kicking Chuck's ass on the wrestling mat. So you were there, Coach Higdon. I need your very unbiased opinion of our performance.
Surprising that you're willing to get out there and put it on the line, both of you. So impressive in that regard. I don't know that I would do it.
That was about the only thing that was impressive. Let's be honest.
Fun. It was entertaining. I had a big smile on my face the whole time.
Mike, you have to get that video where you can see Coach Higdon in the background just belly laughing.
Yeah, that was
just from the depths.
Yeah.
I will say this, Chuck, you're stronger than I anticipated, but you also outweigh me by 40 pounds and are 9 years younger than me.
Allegedly.
So allegedly, you're the one that said. So I will say, respect to you for, probably popping at least your meniscus in the first 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds or 5.
I thought he lost an eyeball too or something.
Yeah. The guy clawed my eyeball.
I did not. So
he did the Ric Flair where you scrape him.
That wasn't even the case. I didn't do anything illegal. We got to the edge of the mat. I circled in. You did not. All that stuff. I almost got homered. I mean,
enough talking about this. Let's get to the questions.
You don't want to talk about it. I don't want to.
I'm still salty. But hey, no, all honesty, it was a great night for wrestling. It was a very good duel. It was a really cool atmosphere in there, and it's something that the Dirty Eagles kids will remember forever. I know those Gretna kids will probably remember that for quite a long time, and the Central kids will remember that. So it was a great night to promote wrestling.
Yeah, it was, and that was obviously the goal of this show, is to do that, and to in that event in particular, we wanted to raise a little money for Dirty Eagles, and we did that and promote wrestling in downtown Omaha in that area. So that's exactly, I think, what we did, and be able to help get some USA Wrestling cards for some kids and do that. Right. So that's what it was. Okay, let's get to the guts a little bit. So, Coach Higdon, what has changed in wrestling in the last year? What are the biggest things that have changed that you see?
Well, I think that the top of that list is going to be girls wrestling and the explosion of the participation numbers with regard to how many teams there are, how many schools are registered for girls wrestling, and really over the last 3 to 4 years, that continues to be how exceed expectations is probably the best way I can do it. Every turn they exceed expectations. The quality is getting better. And I think that we're going to continue that trend for a little while, maybe not to the numbers that we've seen over the last couple of years. I mean, we doubled last year was a double number. And then this year was probably another 80% increase in the total number of participation. And, the great thing about it is we're giving opportunities to young ladies that we're not taking them from something else. We're not taking them from swimming. Most of the time, we're not taking them from basketball, but we're giving a group of people that were not really participating in winter sports an opportunity, and I think that that's a fantastic thing. We are going to continue to promote them and give them the best that we can the same opportunities and the same things that we give the boys, which is at times it's going to be difficult. And as those numbers grow, it's going to become more difficult to match what we do for the boys for the girls, because inevitably they're going to grow to the point where we are probably not going to be able to house them in the same tournament at CHI. That's going to be a difficult task, which means a lot of things. And we have to look at that as we build those numbers and the things progress to where we need to look at making some more changes because of that growth.
Go ahead, Chuck.
With that growth, I mean, you kind of alluded to it where it's this pace can't sustain, right? Eventually it's going to plateau. But how close do you think we are to getting to that 2-class system in girls wrestling right now? Because like you said, it's doubled. The numbers have doubled this year.
Well, I think that's something that I don't make the decision on. We have a committee that we have wrestling people involved, and we also have administrators involved, because it's sometimes what we want as coaches, and I'm speaking as a former coach, what we want as coaches is not exactly what is feasible on the administrative side. So you got to have a mix, and you got to know when is the right time to do that. And I'll just give you what our numbers are currently. I mean, our Class D numbers for boys are between 800 and 900 total participation numbers. Our participation in Class C is about 1,100. Class A is between 1,200 and 1,300. And Class B is our largest, and it has between 1,300 and 1,400. Our girls are right in the middle, just barely breaking 1,200. And so 800 is probably, we don't want to go any lower than that. In fact, that's probably on the low end of where we want to be. So you're talking about 900, between 900 and 1,000 is a great number for a class. So at 1,250, that number needs to be, I would say the conversation starts when they get to 1,800. And I don't know if that's going to happen next year. The problem with it is, in order to make those changes, there's a lot of planning that has to go into it. And when you talk about the amount of work that goes into planning for a state championship, planning for districts, you have to look at our entire season, because right now the girls have a district qualifying tournament, then they have a week off, and then the boys have their district tournament while the girls have a week off, and then we have our state championship together. If the girls are going to be on a different weekend, then we got to look, is that going to be before? Is that going to be after? The length of season for the girls, the number of competitions, you have to have some equality with that, which means that we would look at changing our state dual date. We would probably change our state qualifying tournaments for girls date. We'll change our state qualifying tournament for boys date. We're locked in right now with the contract with CHI for a few more years. And so that date for boys is going to stay the same. So we got to really restructure everything else on the other ends of it to see how that works. And to tell you the truth, I don't know what the right answer is. There's options that we have. The other part of it is if you have 2 classes of girls in CHI, is that the kind of atmosphere that you want? Maybe not. Maybe you want to go to a smaller venue where you have a little bit more atmosphere, and maybe you do want them in CHI, which means you have to plan that for 3 or 4 years out because of contractual agreements that they have with other people. We don't own that facility. Right. I mean, so they're always trying to get new people in. Creighton basketball's an obstacle. If you go to Baxter Arena, you have men's and women's basketball and hockey. And giving up a consistent weekend on a yearly basis for them is going to be difficult. You talk about maybe Ralston Arena in Omaha. That also has some challenges. And then you talk about maybe the Grand Island Event Center in Grand Island. And their schedule itself is built out 2 or 3 years out. I mean, they have a rodeo. They have girls cheer and dance championship on the same weekend as boys wrestling. And that's always been the case ever since I've been at the NSAA. And then the week after that, I think they have a standing rodeo that they have every year. And so then we talk about swimming championships because we bump heads with swimming championships. So there's a huge discussion that takes place it's not just, okay, we're going to have second class because it's not that easy.
Right.
And I know that people think it might be, but it's really not. And I don't know that there's a bigger advocate for girls wrestling than me, but at the same time, when you talk about administrative decisions, you have to be smart about it, because the last thing that we want to do is maybe make some decisions that are too fast and then like regret the direction that we went. So we really calculated. We have a lot of discussion with it, and sometimes people are not happy with it. And I'll be honest, if we don't go to 2 classes by next year, which is what people want, I'm going to take the brunt of the criticism. But at the same time, I don't know that that's where we will land. The other part of it is timing, because we really won't know those girls' numbers until November or December because of the alpha testing.
Right.
Well, then the schedule's already made for that year. So you're almost like a year behind. It's like legislation. It takes a year to make it happen. We've fast-tracked a lot of the decisions that we made on the girls because of the number of schools that got involved as soon as we sanctioned it. And we've made some decisions on the fly, which is uncommon. We don't normally do that at the NSAA. Usually it takes a little bit longer to do that. So we've come a long way, and we have a little bit further to go, but I think it's going to be a little slower than some people want, and that's going to be tough on some people. But that's the reality.
But if you rush it, it is a huge disservice to the girls.
Yeah, and agreed with that. But you also have to look at, you don't want to negatively affect the boys either. You know, right. You have to take that. We have grown the viewership and the fans of wrestling in the state of Nebraska every year for 10 years straight. COVID was like a hiccup, but we barely took a step back in COVID. And so this is my 11th year. We have 9 of the top 10 attendances in the history of NSAA wrestling in that time frame. And the only time it's like number 9 or 10 right now was the first year was in Omaha. And if you take the COVID year and we had a regular year, we would probably have knocked that out. Yeah. So this year, without a doubt, we're gonna break another record. We're already sold out for our semifinals and finals. There's no tickets to the general public. Everything got allocated to our schools, which is fantastic. But I will say, we've never turned anybody away. We have the ability to sell standing room only tickets for those seats that are not taken, for people that purchase tickets and then their kids don't qualify, or they purchase tickets and their kids don't make the semifinals or finals. And they're like, I've been here for 3 days. I'm not going to go to the last session. So there's seats to be had, and we're able to sell those standing room only tickets. The problem with that is we can only do that at the time of the session because it goes on scanned. Like, how many people have we scanned in so far? Okay, we can have, 300 more. Let's scan them in. Let's see where we're at. So CHI does a fantastic job of that, and they accommodate as much as we can. And as I said, we have yet to turn somebody away that was at the door wanting to get in to watch wrestling.
Is it part of that, back to the girls' discussion and changing in 2 classes and different locations? I mean, there's also Title IX stuff you got to have in mind too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, if you're in a smaller arena versus a bigger one, and it's kind of doesn't.
Yeah. That's a great point. And so we have to get some input. We have to get some input from our member schools and say, all right, what do you want? What do you really want? And then maybe they say, we want to have our own thing. We want to have our own championship at a championship venue. We try to, across the sports, we try to be at the best venues that we have to offer. But that's not always feasible sometimes. But on the girls' side, there's a lot of discussions and a lot of decisions that have to be made, and they have to be made like at minimum a year in advance.
Right.
And as you build, you're making changes and you're looking towards the future. And when you're talking about those large venues, we have multi-year contracts with them. And so if you're looking at, what are we going to do next? I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think that I live with it every day. I mean, it's on my mind every day at work. Every day I get a call or a phone call or an email talking about, hey, what's this, what's that? So not that I'm losing sleep about it, but I dream about it. Yeah. It's on my mind a lot.
on that note, they would have to go out for bid. There's a major process. It's not like you guys. I think a lot of people, just fans in general, don't understand that there's like a bidding process, and
Yes.
like the NSAA doesn't just say, okay, we're going to put it here. No, the basically convention and visitors bureaus have to apply basically and put a bid in to host, whether it be tennis, basketball, whatever, doesn't really matter. Wrestling, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, typically that's usually the case because communities do want it. I mean, that's a huge economic impact for any community bringing it in. I mean, even a district wrestling tournament is a pretty good bump. Our state cross country meet is a 1 day, not even half of them probably stay the night, but it's a huge economic boom for Kearney.
Yeah.
So yeah, those communities want it, and we have to really weigh that with, all right, Title IX, what's best for the girls, what's best for the boys. I mean, and try to get a balance with that. And that's not always easy, and it's not always popular. Some people will be happy, some people won't. We're never going to make everybody happy.
Right.
Coach, as a fan of wrestling around Omaha, and I'm a nobody, but I'm going to suggest that we stay as far away from that arena in Higdon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't frequented that place.
I'm not sure of the name of it, even, to be honest with you.
Okay. So let's move on just a little bit, right? So we talked about girls wrestling in the future for 15 minutes and all that. So let's discuss kind of state duels that's coming up this weekend. Obviously, it's been in Kearney. They've been a great host of it. Any changes, anything new on the horizon people can maybe look forward to or see it at state duels?
I think state duels is at a good venue right now. It's at a good place. It's at a good time frame. We used to have it at the week after state, and it was kind of anticlimactic for the kind of show that we put on in Omaha. But it's at a great place. The excitement part is some of the new teams that have got is Omaha Central. Omaha Central qualified for duels.
Ooh.
Yep. And there's some other new teams that have never been there either. We make signs and we keep them every year. So I think there's like 6 new schools that have never been there before. So that part is exciting for the fans and the communities that do that. The atmosphere itself, the semifinals are usually like really loud and it's a pretty great atmosphere. And people, the casual fan, they like duels better than tournaments because every match has one of their, they're watching somebody from their team wrestle every match, and they can sit down and watch an hour and a half worth of everybody on their team wrestling. Whereas in a tournament, it's kind of here and there, and you got to catch a mat, especially in Omaha. If you don't know what's going on, you better have somebody beside you that does, because you'll miss it. So, I mean, our executive director, Jay Beller, says he loves going to duels because he was a superintendent at Battle Creek for 20 years. Battle Creek is a pretty tough Class C wrestling school, and they do well. And he loves going and watching just all those kids wrestle, from his community. And that's how the fans are. And we were concerned whether that venue was big enough. And it is, but it's packed, and it has some atmosphere, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun for those teams.
I'm really glad to hear that because, there a few years back we were worried about the attendance at state duels, and now it just seems to be taking off. And, tournament finals are awesome, but there's nothing like a duel, right?
Oh yeah. Agreed. And even if the score is not close or great, it's not a tight score on the team score, you still have the ability to watch some good wrestling and good matchups and so forth. And the thing that's different about duels, and I'll tell you this, this happened like 2 years ago. The Class C or D schools, I can't even remember. I remember the mat that it was on, but they threw a kid out there and he got tech balled, but he didn't get pinned, and his team won by 1 point. They were the last match of the duel. The kid just got trounced in the match, and they had him on his shoulders. They were carrying him around the mat because he saved a team point, and that actually won the duel for him. So that's the nice thing about duels is you can kind of get some other people involved, and they can inspire your team even if they don't win. It can inspire some guys to wrestle, and they feel a part of it, and it's just different. Duels are different, and it's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, like if you're I don't know, if you're going for individuals a little different, like wrestlebacks, or you're still team point stuff, but it matters for the kid that maybe isn't gonna medal or something like that. It just a little bit different things.
And with duels too, I mean, you could have one kid's team, just like you said, getting trounced, but you could have one match where it's the 1 versus 2 wrestler or the 1 versus 1 wrestler, so, and then you've got both teams just on the mat. I get super pumped up for duels.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's fun to watch.
You want to move on maybe to individual, because it's like you said, it's the biggest event that wrestling that we have in the state by far. I think as far as attendance and everything is concerned.
Yep.
All right. My question is this: if everything goes as planned, meaning one individual, are we ending or starting at 120 on Saturday of the state tournament if things go as planned?
We tried that. I got mixed emotions about it, and I had mixed comments about it. I think it's probably traditionally it seems to work better when we start with the lower weights and then we end with the heavyweights. So we won't change the order of weights for this year. Even the guys that were potentially going for their 4th title, like we have, they didn't really care to be last. It wasn't a big deal for them. Yeah. So we'll keep them in order. We'll start at 106 and trudge through them. We'll have 14 weight classes of girls mixed in with the boys, and because they're a single class, we'll do it like we did last year, where we'll have about 3 matches of boys, and then we'll have a round of girls. So that'll have all 4 mats with girls, another 3 matches of boys, and then kind of mix them in. Last year, when we only had 12 weight classes of girls, it worked well because we only had 3 rounds. Right. Now we'll have 4 rounds of girls, which actually is only adding one more round because we're going from 12 to 14. That's really only one more match total from the time frame that we had last year at state finals. But it's a show, it's a production. CHI does a fantastic job. Nebraska Public Media does a fantastic job. I mean, I think that and football are the 2 highest viewing audiences that they get throughout the year for the NSAA. So, and we'll sell 60,000 tickets for a 3-day tournament coming to 6 sessions. So I think that's significant. That's significant for our fan, our population base. I think per capita, we're probably top 3 in the country with the number of people that come watch wrestling. Wow. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, we're at 2 million in our state. And I know some of the other states that rival us, their population is like 4 or 5 times what ours is. So per capita, we do pretty well.
Is girls side, and I guess I maybe know this and maybe not everyone does, but you're going to have a separate announcer for Nebraska Public Media on just a female presence, right?
Potentially. They're interviewing a couple actually today and tomorrow. Okay. They were interviewing a couple that will potentially. I've asked that we look in that direction, and they were more than accommodating. But they want to make sure that they put a good product up there, so they're vetting them and making sure that they can handle it. And if it happens and they come back next week and they say, yeah, we're going, then yes, we'll have a female commentator for the first time. Which, to my knowledge, I don't know of anybody else that has the commentator side on TV as a female for wrestling. So we want to blaze that trail. We love it.
Anything else new? Like the smoke with the lights was a couple years ago, and the tunnels. By the way, that makes for an amazing photo.
Yes.
With the wrestlers, I've taken some great photos of dudes just standing in that smoke waiting for their name to be announced with the lights behind them. It's amazing.
Reagan Rossetter had one of the coolest pictures last year. It was awesome.
Yeah, we that's not perfect yet. We still have to get that right. we're still working on it. We have outside contractors that come in and help us with all that. One thing that is a change, we changed our schedule a little bit. I know last year semifinals, it was a guess, and we calculated time frames for starting, and we were off a little bit. So we waited about a half hour before we started any festivities on Friday night. This year, we're going to be ahead of the game because last year we didn't even start the girls' tournament until Friday morning. They're wrestling on Thursday just like the boys, so they'll have 2 rounds in the books before Friday even comes around, and then so we'll end up having less matches on Saturday or Friday for the girls, but we're starting a half hour earlier for those morning sessions, and we're starting an hour and a half later for the later sessions. So it starts instead of 5 o'clock, it's going to be 6:30. And that will give us about a 2-hour gap plus less matches. So I think that we're going to have a better break in between there for people to get out because they do want to clear the facility. They do want to have a chance to clean it up a little bit and then open the doors back up and get them back in. So that being said, with that starting later, we're making some changes with our dual parade. We used to have a team dual parade of all the schools that qualified for state duels. We're taking that out. I think that's kind of ran its course. I started getting complaints from administrators that we're just trying to make people buy tickets just because if they don't qualify and they're not a wrestler participating in the state tournament, but they were in duels, then they had to buy a ticket to get in. And we're like, well, we can't, I mean, that's 640 kids. We can't just we don't have the seating to give away 640 tickets. Right. So I think it's ran its course. I'm over people complaining about it. So we're not going to do that. We are going to have we're going to have a pretty cool little thing on Friday night that I'm excited about.
Another big name surprise.
Not like that, but something pretty cool.
Yeah. I love how he's just downplaying it, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it out of me. But Thomas Gilman isn't coming out. Is that what you're saying?
Not this year. But I mean, if we look back on that guy comes back to an arena that booed him, tried to boo him out of the arena, hated him. And that gave me chills when we were standing in the middle of the arena and it was a standing ovation. They couldn't even hear the announcer. People were cheering so loud. So what a turnaround and what a great thing for the state of Nebraska and for Thomas Gilman, especially. Not that he cared that people booed him, but well-deserved congratulations and lets people know in Nebraska that they love him and they love wrestling. And he earned that. So that part was good. This year,
best ever do it.
This year is going to be something a little bit different. I've been working on something for a little while with our partner truck center companies, and I'm excited about it. It's going to be pretty cool.
Look at him just downplaying this.
I was like, here we go.
Look at him just downplaying it.
I can't let it out, man.
Hey, Coach, I know that this tournament is really, really stressful as it is, but I heard that Gretna has a pretty tough 126-pounder. So how much more does that add onto your plate?
It's
well. Okay.
I coached for 19 years at UNO,
right?
And then I coached kids club for 10, and so I have about 29, 30 years of coaching. And this is my first year not coaching, and so it's a little different. It's tough to be a dad, and it's tough to. I feel like I know him well. I feel like I can coach him well, but it's somebody else's turn to do it, and I find myself at times chattering at him. But it's he's doing it. He's exceeding expectations too. He's doing really well as a freshman, hovering around 500, which at that weight class is respectable.
It seems like I was just riding around with him in a golf cart around Shoreline talking about fantasy football at the Maryville wrestling outing.
Yeah. He's doing well. He's doing well. A district in North Platte will be it's pretty tough.
Yeah. He's won some big matches though here down the stretch. He's really turning it on at the right time.
Yeah, thanks. I'll let him know that you said that because he's pretty down to earth about it. He's like, hey, I got nothing to lose.
I'm excited for him. I'm excited for him.
He is tough. No, he not won't back down, doesn't care, fearless. all of that. I know it's your kid and whatever, but like watching him wrestle the few times I have this year, I was like, that dude's he's gonna be all right. Like,
yeah, I think he is gonna be all right. He's matured over the last year and actually doing the things we worked on for years. And I can't really fault him for a lot of things. He does it just like we did. Sometimes he just gets pounded. Like he takes some lumps right now, and but he bounces back. And that honestly, in general, that's what I love about wrestling. You get your head knocked in a few times, but then you got to turn around and come back on that same day and show what kind of character you have and get back out there and compete and give it all, leave it all on the mat. And I think he does a good job of that. There's some guys that struggle with that, and there's some guys that are really good with that. And I think that sometimes the guys that struggle with it at the beginning get better, and it helps them in life. I truly believe that it really helps them in life. And that's one of the aspects of wrestling that I think is underrated and undervalued. And that's the part that I love about it. It's one of my favorite.
Well, he's got two great competitors for parents, so that definitely helps.
And a sister that probably beat him up a little bit.
Yeah, she's competitive. She don't like to lose.
Yeah. Last thing on that, and how cool would it be though if he made it to the individual? I mean, that would be.
That would be special. That'd be special. It would be a whole new, like you said, Chuck, a whole new level of stress. I mean, you just feel for them. You want them to meet their potential and sometimes exceed potential, like overachieve.
Well, at that point, it becomes, they're an extension of you. It's when they're hurting, you're hurting. When they're happy, you're happy.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when you have to put it in perspective though, and you have to channel your energy, because there's too many people that feel that way, so much so that they lose control of themselves. Yeah. And then they start acting like, I don't think they'd be proud of themselves. If they were watching themselves somewhere else, they wouldn't be proud of themselves. And I think that that's something that the society today that we really have to pay attention to and channel in. And I will tell you, one of the other things that we're really going to pay attention to is sportsmanship this year.
My next question was going to be that, basically.
Absolutely. Sportsmanship is a big deal. It's a big deal. And we're not going to put up with it. Some of the shenanigans that went on last year were unacceptable. I said it more than once that it's unacceptable, and we'll deal with it appropriately. And they're not going to like the way we deal with it if they think that they're just going to do it and be done with it and get away with it, because we're not. My board of directors ever since I've been here has said, you need to get rid of the backflip. And I've defended it until they're my boss. And they said, no, it's over, no more. And I said, all right. So it's not against the rules, and really, for the most part, anywhere else, it wouldn't be unsportsmanlike, but the only penalty that we can administer for them doing a backflip is an unsportsmanlike. So we're letting them know ahead of time, you can do it, but it's going to be called unsportsmanlike. We'll take a team point if it's after the match and move on. But the other stuff that is questionable will not only be called unsportsmanlike. There's going to be some flagrant misconduct called unless it straightens up from what it was last year, because it was unacceptable.
And kids know how far is too far.
It's all controllable actions. Yeah. Every bit of it's controllable actions, and none of it's like I slipped. I mean, yeah, they're kids, but there's consequences, and the coaches can hold them accountable, or we can hold them accountable, so they can choose which one that is.
And I was at the board meeting after following individual state last year, and it was brought up in the board meeting about wrestling and sportsmanship, and it's on TV and all that. Like, you're very much so correct.
The problem, if you watch guys, how the NFL guys act when they score a touchdown or a first down, and how even the college wrestlers, how they act, and they don't get penalized for it. And they think that, that's kind of the way it is. Okay, we get to do that. No, we don't. And we're not. That's different. It's education-based athletic. It's different. It's not a professional league. We don't pay you millions of dollars to perform and entertain. You're here to compete, and we're here to give you the opportunity to do that. with respect, and we're going to make sure that respect stays there.
And I think that's the key right there. It's okay to show emotions.
100%, yes. It's okay to celebrate. It's 100% okay to celebrate. Celebrate with your fans. Celebrate with your coaches. The problem that we were having was it was taunting. It was showboating in front of the other crowd, in front of the other coaches, especially to your opponent, showboating to them. We're going to let them celebrate within reason. And we want them to be excited. We want the crowd to be excited. Absolutely. We don't want to take that enthusiasm away, but we are going to call it if it happens and it's disrespectful. We won't allow it. It's like a parent.
Well, I think that's more than fair.
Yeah.
I think that's more than fair.
And if they know going into it that that's the way it's going to be, I'll take that conversation anytime with the coach.
I know one thing that you don't have to worry about on the girls' side is a lack of sportsmanship, because if they pin someone, they're like hugging and like all that stuff like immediately. And I find that just fascinating.
It is. It's a different atmosphere. We had officials go do our girls' district, and he said it was the most exciting thing that he did all year.
Yeah.
He said, you can send me back to a girls' district anytime. So and speaking of our girls' districts, there's going to be some tough districts out there. There's going to be some hammers, there's going to be some, but it's kind of luck of the draw, because some weights are really tough in some districts and some are not at all in that same district. So it's difficult. It's not like you can separate basketball teams because they play as a team and they win and lose only as a team. It's not an individual performance. It's difficult to split up all those people when you're doing teams. But I think that we've done the best that we can. It will get better now that we have this many teams with a number of quality girls in there. And when we distribute districts, it'll be better. It'll distribute it a little bit better. I mean, we have Norfolk going all the way out to Bridgeport. I mean, but if Norfolk looked at the Fremont district, they would probably say, oh, we'll go to Bridgeport.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I should have asked when we were talking about duels, and this is brought up, I don't know why, like people talking about on Twitter and everything, was the people feel slighted that their team didn't make the state duels. Has there been any discussion, or what about reseeding using head-to-head criteria for duels?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, it typically works out pretty well for 90% of it. There's going to be some teams that seventh and eighth position that somebody got in and somebody didn't. There's always some grumbling about that. But at the same time, I haven't heard anything that's better. I haven't heard anything that would help us qualify better. As far as seeding, we would have to come up with a system to do that. Not that we couldn't, because we certainly have time. We have a week to do it from the time they finish their last competitions till the time we wrestle again. We could certainly do that. But then you're talking about an algorithm, and because I don't want it to be, it can't be a 32 team seeding meeting, where everybody's, pitching their, I mean, Chuck, you remember the good old days when they did that. They end up in fist fights. That's one of the reasons we went to just straight algorithm.
I remember wrestling and just waiting, like, when I was a kid, younger, like, okay, where am I going to get? Hopefully my coach sticks up for me and gives me a better seed or whatever in this tournament on a Saturday, regular day.
Those things could last an hour, hour and a half, and you got a coach coming out with his shirt untucked and his hair everywhere. And now they take like 10, 15 minutes, and it's just, that's that.
And we did some comparisons from seeding meetings prior to using the algorithm, and we were like 62% more accurate. It was ridiculous, like how much more closely the seeds came out to the way they placed. And so is it perfect? No. Otherwise, we would just say, all right, you're rated number one. We'll send you the first place medal. Yeah. You got to get in there. You got to compete. You got to show up when it counts. I will say that our legislative process, and I'm confident with the way the voting went in November and January, that we will next year seed the 4 district hosts, or the 4 district champs at every weight, which will be really what you're trying to do when you see that, because then you fall into the same kind of formula that we use now. There's 24 different scenarios when you seed 1 through 4 in all those different placements. So there's 24 different formulas. And when that happens, we'll separate probably 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 3. They'll probably be on the opposite side, which will mean that they'll meet in the finals instead of the semifinals. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of people that like the fact that they meet in the semifinals, because it makes semifinals that much more exciting too.
Well, and you know, if you see the top 4, there's really no argument. Don't lose at districts.
Yep.
Yeah, but I will say this, and this is 1998 when I was a senior in high school.
Was this when you beat Ryan Terry?
Totally did not. Shut up. I don't know why you keep going back to that. He did throw me in a headlock a couple times though. Was guys though. So I don't know if you remember, Grant Sather was a guy, really good wrestler.
Yeah, he wrestled for us.
Yeah, he was 125 in Millard North. I was 125 and went to Ralston. He had a shoulder his senior year, my senior year, same year. Maybe it was junior year, him, whatever. But he had a shoulder. So he makes it to the district final. And this was the old seeding way, right? So makes it to the district final and then doesn't wrestle the championship. So he's second in his district. And I got third in my district. And I ended up with the dude that won the state title, even though he got second in his district right out of the gate. And I was like, dude, like, really?
I think my feeling on that though is,
so like, are you worried about people kind of jimmying the system a little bit,
No, because they don't know. No, I don't. Most of the time it takes care of itself. Right. Those guys want to win their district title. Right. And we have,
if they know they have more to lose now too.
If they're nursing an injury or something though, that's all I'm getting.
Could. Look at the Big Ten finals. Look how many guys medical forfeited out of the Big Tens, and it was like NCAA is looking like, all right, we got to do something different. They're already in the tournament. They don't think that it'll affect their seat, so they just say, I'm not wrestling that one.
Right.
Which is, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. I understand from the coach's side that they don't want to get somebody hurt, but at the same time, it's not very good for wrestling.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Right. And I agree, because it happened to me, I guess. Anyway, No. All right, Chuck, you got anything else? I'm good. This has been great. It's our, like I said, our annual, we can call this annual, once a year, long conversation.
And I could have talked for another hour. It's whenever Coach Higdon's around, it's always just a great time to talk wrestling. And I want to thank you for everything that you do for the sport, because I think that you've really elevated a big reason why wrestling in Nebraska is elevated, youth all the way up to high school. As I've told you before, you've done a lot for me, so I really appreciate that. And, oos.
Thanks. You're probably giving me a little too much credit, but I'm glad to be where I'm at. I think that I feel like when we were at UNO that we had an impact on wrestling in the state, and this has allowed me to stay involved with the sport that I love. And I think I have made an impact. I think that, but I have great support. The coaches support me, the wrestlers, that although they don't know who I am, that they do a good job. They put their heart and soul into it. And it's a passion for me. It's been my whole life.
Those kids don't remember watching Steve Mocco and Les Sigmund at 12:30 in the field house.
Yeah. Those are that's a whole nother podcast right there, isn't it?
That's right.
They weren't even alive back then. So yeah.
I appreciate you guys and the coverage that you guys give wrestling. I think that the outlet that people have the opportunity to hear information is valuable, and they otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity to hear some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. And it astonishes me sometimes when you get on social media and they make the comment like, did they even think about this? Like, they made this decision? Like, it's like, oh my gosh, if you only knew.
Yeah.
So it's a labor of love for me, and I'm fortunate to be involved with people like you guys, and I really appreciate all that you do for not only wrestling, Mike. I mean, you do a lot for high school sports, and it's noticeable, and it's you can tell people know who you are, and they watch. They want to see what kind of product you put out there. So kudos to you and Chuck for rehabbing your knee and being ready for the next outing. I will offer my coaching services to you.
I'm retired. Never again.
Maybe we can get Jimmy out there.
Oh, good luck.
I think I'm just going to go out being the people's champ and never wrestle again.
I think that's a wise choice.
It's probably the best idea for all of us.
All right. Thank you for the kind words. I got a little emotional there because it means a lot. So
absolutely,
I appreciate it. Okay. Well, see ya in a couple weeks, or if not this weekend.
Absolutely. Have a great night, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
You too. Thank you.
Goodbye.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.